A millionaire sees abandoned twins on Christmas Eve and discovers a secret that leaves him in tears. Snow fell softly on New York City, transforming the bustling metropolis into a winter wonderland on Christmas Eve. But for John Peter Davis, the festive glow of the city lights only amplified his loneliness. At 60, the millionaire gazed out the window of his luxurious penthouse, his reflection a stark reminder of a man whose ambitious eyes now held a deep emptiness. With a heavy sigh, John Peter adjusted his cashmere coat and decided on an unusual impulse, a walk through the city streets on Christmas Eve. Perhaps, he thought with a flicker of reluctant hope, he could find a trace of the Christmas spirit he'd long lost. The streets were nearly deserted, adorned with twinkling lights that danced in the crisp winter air. John Peter passed festive window displays, ignoring the curious glances of the few passers-by who recognized the infamous tycoon. His steps led him away from the main avenues, into narrow side streets where shadows swallowed even the falling snow. That's when he heard it, a sound so out of place in the quiet night that it made his long, dormant heart skip a beat. A child's sob, followed by a hushed, comforting whisper. Turning a corner, John Peter stumbled upon a scene that would forever be etched in his memory. Two small boys, no older than 5, huddled against a brick wall, identical twins, with dark hair and wide eyes glistening with unshed tears. Their thin, worn clothes offered little protection against the biting cold. For a moment, John Peter was paralyzed. Something in the boys and faces stirred a distant memory, a sense of déjà vu so strong it took his breath away. Even more surprising was the wave of emotion that washed over him, a blend of compassion and an inexplicable sense of responsibility. "Are you lost?" John Peter heard himself ask, his voice raspy from disuse. The boys exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. The one who appeared to be the older twin answered in a trembling voice, "We ran away. We can't go back." John Peter felt a lump form in his throat. Run away? From where? And why? 1,000 questions sprang to his mind, accompanied by an urge he hadn't felt in decades, the desire to help. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand. "It's too cold out here." Hesitantly, the twins rose. In the dim light of a nearby street lamp, John Peter noticed bruises on the boys' arms, partially hidden by their sleeves. His stomach churned with a sudden surge of anger, directed at whoever had hurt these children. As they walked back towards his apartment, John Peter couldn't help but notice how the boys moved in perfect synchronicity, as if they were a single being divided into 2 bodies. And there was something else, something in their eyes, a mixture of fear and hope that unsettled him. In the elevator of his penthouse, the contrast between the surrounding luxury and the twins' condition was stark. John Peter found himself doing something he hadn't done in years, questioning his priorities. Upon entering the apartment, the boys' eyes widened at the splendor around them. John Peter led them to the living room, where an electric fireplace radiated a cozy warmth. "What are your names?" he asked gently, kneeling down to their level. "I'm Alex," said the seemingly older twin. "And this is my brother, Ben." As the names echoed in his mind, John Peter felt a strange familiarity, as if he were on the verge of an important discovery. He looked at the twins' faces, searching for what? He couldn't say. "Well, Alex and Ben," he said, surprising himself with the softness in his own voice. "You're safe here. Tomorrow T will figure things out." As he prepared a room for the boys and served them a warm meal of macaroni and cheese, John Peter found himself reflecting on how much his life had changed in just a few hours. Who were these boys? Where did they come from? And why did he feel such a strong connection to them? Lying in bed that night, unable to sleep, John Peter knew his life would never be the same. What had begun as another lonely night had transformed into the start of a journey that promised to unearth long-buried secrets and test the boundaries of his long-hardened heart. As the snow continued to fall outside, John Peter made a silent promise to the sleeping twins in the next room. He would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Little did he know that this promise would lead him to a discovery that would shake the foundations of everything he thought he knew about his life. A truth so profound that it would leave him in tears, rediscovering the true meaning of family and love. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, the snow reflecting the sunlight streaming through the windows of John Peter's penthouse. The millionaire, accustomed to waking up alone, found himself in a surreal situation, making pancakes for two boys who, until the night before, were complete strangers. Alex and Ben emerged shyly from the guest room, their wide eyes taking in the luxurious surroundings with a mixture of wonder and distrust. John Peter noticed how they moved in perfect synchrony, as if they were two halves of a whole. "Good morning," said John Peter, his voice softer than usual. "Did you sleep well?" The twins exchanged glances before Alex replied, "Yes, sir. Thank you." As they ate, John Peter observed the boys carefully. Their movements were cautious, almost mechanical, as if they were expecting something bad to happen at any moment. It was behavior that spoke of experiences no child should have. "Can you tell me where you came from?" John Peter asked gently, trying not to sound too intrusive. Ben, who had remained silent until then, spoke for the first time. "St. Michael's Orphanage." The name sent a shiver down John Peter's spine. He knew that place not for its good deeds, but for the dark rumors that surrounded it. "Why did you run away?" The question came out before he could stop himself. The twins exchanged glances again, a silent conversation passing between them. It was Alex who answered, his voice trembling slightly. They weren't good to us." John Peter felt his heart clench. He rose slowly and knelt beside the children, noticing how they instinctively flinched. Carefully, he touched Alex's arm, lifting the sleeve of his borrowed pajamas. What he saw horrified him. Bruises in various stages of healing marked the boy's pale skin. Ben, noticing what was happening, voluntarily showed his own arms, equally bruised. "Who did this to you?" John Peter asked, his voice a mixture of anger and compassion. "Mr. Durand," whispered Ben. "He runs the orphanage. He said we were bad kids and that nobody wanted us." Anger bubbled inside John Peter. How could anyone be so cruel to children? And why these children in particular? There was something about them, a familiarity that both intrigued and disturbed him. "You're not bad," John Peter said firmly, "and you're safe here." At that moment, as he looked into the twins' eyes, John Peter was hit by a wave of déjà vu so strong that he almost lost his balance. Those eyes, he knew them from somewhere. "Do you know anything about your parents?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Alex shook his head. "Only that our mum died a year ago. We don't remember her." John Peter felt a pang of sadness, orphans so young and already having gone through so much. He stood up, determined. "I'm going to find out more about you, I promise. Nobody's going to hurt you again." Throughout the day, John Peter observed Alex and Ben interacting. They seemed to have a language of their own, communicating with glances and subtle gestures. Occasionally, one of them would say something that seemed out of context for a 5-year-old, like when Ben commented on the duality of human nature while looking at their reflection in a mirror. That night, while the twins slept, John Peter sat in his study, surrounded by papers and his laptop. The information he'd managed to gather was disturbing. St. Michael's Orphanage had a questionable reputation, with several accusations of mistreatment over the years, all mysteriously hushed up. But what intrigued him most were the twins' records. There were inconsistencies in the dates, missing information, as if someone had deliberately obscured their origins. John Peter leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. The more he discovered, the more questions arose. Who were Alex and Ben, really? Why did their stories seem so carefully hidden? And why did he feel this inexplicable connection to them? As the snow fell softly outside, John Peter made a silent promise. He would get to the bottom of this story, no matter the cost. Something told him that the fate of these boys was intertwined with his own in a way he couldn't yet comprehend. Little did John Peter know that his search for the truth would lead him to confront not only the twins' secrets, but also the ghosts of his own past. The journey that had begun on Christmas Eve was about to unearth long-buried truths, forever changing the course of several lives and revealing a secret that would leave him in tears, redefining everything he believed about family and his own legacy. The day after Christmas dawned with John Peter determined to uncover more about Alex and Ben's mysterious past. While the twins were still asleep, exhausted from the events of the past few days, he made a crucial phone call. "Sarah, it's John Peter Davis. I need your help urgently." Sarah Thompson, a respected social worker and an old acquaintance of John Peter's, arrived at the penthouse 2 hours later. Her discerning eyes scanned the luxurious surroundings before settling on John Peter. "So, what's so urgent that it has the great John Peter Davis calling me the day after Christmas?" she asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and skepticism. John Peter led her to his study, away from the twins' ears. "I found 2 abandoned boys last night. Twins. They ran away from an orphanage and, Sarah, they were abused." Sarah's expression instantly shifted from skepticism to professional concern. "Tell me everything." Over the next few minutes, John Peter recounted the events of the previous night, the discovery of the twins, and the suspicions he had about St. Michael's orphanage. Sarah listened intently, making occasional notes. "John Peter," she said finally, "you understand that, legally, we have to notify the authorities immediately, right?" He nodded, tense. "I know, but there's something else here, Sarah. Something personal. I can't explain it, but I feel like I know these boys from somewhere." Sarah studied him for a moment. "Okay, let's do this the right way. First, I need to examine the boys and document any evidence of abuse. Then we'll start investigating their past. But John Peter, promise me you won't get too emotionally involved. This could get complicated." John Peter agreed, although in his heart he knew it was already too late for such a promise. When Alex and Ben woke up, Sarah examined them gently, documenting every bruise and scar. The boys, initially apprehensive, relaxed under her caring approach. "You're very brave," Sarah told the twins after the examination. "Can you tell me a little more about your mother?" Ben, usually the quieter one, surprisingly spoke up. "She was beautiful. And she sang to us every night." Alex added, "She had a pretty necklace edged with a blue stone. She said it was magic and protected us." Sarah exchanged a meaningful look with John Peter. These details could be crucial in tracing the boys' origins. While Sarah made some phone calls, John Peter sat with the twins in the living room. "Do you like stories?" he asked, trying to distract them. The boys' eyes lit up. "Yes," they exclaimed in unison. John Peter began to tell a story from his own childhood about a lonely boy who found friendship in unexpected places. As he spoke, he noticed how the twins watched him intently, almost as if they were searching for something in his face. Sarah returned with some news. The accident that killed their mother happened exactly a year ago, a car crash on the highway to upstate New York. Her name was Clara Moore. John Peter felt a chill run down his spine. Clara Moore. The name echoed in his mind, stirring long-buried memories. "Clara," he murmured, his mind racing. "Sarah, that name. I knew a Clara years ago. She worked at my company for a short time." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Interesting, I'll look into this Clara Moore. In the meantime, we need to decide what to do with the boys. They can't go back to St. Michael's, not with this evidence of abuse." John Peter didn't hesitate. "They stay here, at least until we find out more." Sarah looked skeptical. "John Peter, caring for 2 traumatized children isn't easy. Are you sure?" He looked at the twins, who were now quietly playing with some toys he had hastily bought. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah made temporary legal arrangements for the twins to stay under John Peter's care, while an investigation into St. Michael's orphanage was launched. That night, after Sarah had left with the promise to return with more information, John Peter sat in his study examining old employee files. He knew there had been a Clara who worked for him years ago, but the details were hazy in his memory. As he rummaged through the files, an envelope fell out of a folder. John Peter picked it up, curious. Inside, he found an old photograph. His heart almost stopped. In the photo, a young woman smiled at the camera. Her eyes, her smile, they were identical to Alex and Ben's. And around her neck was a necklace with a blue stone. John Peter felt his legs weaken. He sank into his chair, the photo trembling in his hands. This was Clara, the Clara he had known years ago, the same Clara who was the twins' mother, but there was more. Looking at the photo, John Peter couldn't deny the striking resemblance between Clara and himself. The same eyes, the same face shape. A million questions flooded his mind. How was this possible? What was the true connection between him, Clara, and the twins? At that moment, John Peter heard a small noise coming from the doorway. Alex was there, looking at him with curious eyes. "Are you okay, sir?" the boy asked. John Peter swallowed hard, trying to control his emotions. "Yes, Alex, everything's fine. Go back to bed, it's late." As he watched Alex return to the bedroom, John Peter knew his life was about to change drastically. The mystery surrounding these twins was much deeper and more personal than he could ever have imagined. With trembling hands, he picked up the phone to call Sarah. They needed to delve deeper into this investigation immediately. John Peter had a feeling he was on the verge of a discovery that would not only change his life, but also reveal a long-buried secret. A secret that, he feared, would leave him in tears when it finally came to light. John Peter Davis sat in his luxurious study, his eyes fixed on the photograph Sarah had uncovered. The image of Clara, smiling radiantly, seemed to leap off the paper, bringing with it a wave of long-repressed memories. His fingers trembled slightly as he traced the outline of her face, the resemblance to the twins now painfully obvious. "Clara?" he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "How could I have forgotten?" A sudden flashback transported him back 6 years. Clara had just walked into his office, her eyes shining with determination and intelligence. "Mr. Davis," she'd said, "I have some ideas for the new project I'd like to discuss." John Peter smiled as he remembered how impressed he'd been with the young woman that day. Clara wasn't just beautiful, but brilliant and ambitious. She reminded him so much of himself when he was younger that it was almost eerie. Back in the present, John Peter was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Alex and Ben entered timidly, their large eyes filled with curiosity. "Mr. Davis," Alex began hesitantly, "can we see the picture of our mom again?" John Peter felt his heart clench. "Of course, come here," he said, gesturing for them to approach. The twins huddled next to his chair, their eyes fixed on the photograph. Ben gently touched Clara's face in the image. "She was so pretty," he murmured. "Yes, she was," John Peter agreed softly. "Do you remember anything else about her?" Alex frowned, concentrating. "She liked to sing to us before bed. She had a beautiful voice." Another flashback hit John Peter. It was the company Christmas party, and Clara was on stage, her angelic voice enchanting everyone with a moving rendition of Silent Night. He remembered how his eyes had filled with tears that night, moved by the young woman's talent and sensitivity. "Did she sing Silent Night to you?" John Peter asked, his voice trembling. The twins' eyes widened in surprise. "Yes," they exclaimed in unison. "How did you know?" John Peter smiled sadly. "I heard her sing it once. She had a special gift." In the days that followed, John Peter found himself spending more and more time with the twins, sharing stories about Clara and listening intently to the fragmented memories they had of their mother. Each new piece of information was like a piece of a complex puzzle, slowly revealing a picture he both dreaded and longed to see completed. One afternoon, while they were playing in the penthouse garden, Ben innocently asked, "Mr. Davis, why do you have so many pictures of our mum?" John Peter froze for a moment, unsure how to answer. Finally, he opted for the truth. "Your mother worked for me for a while. She was very special to me." Alex, always the more perceptive one, tilted his head. "Did you love her like a dad loves a daughter?" The question struck John Peter like a thunderbolt. That was exactly how he felt about Clara, he realized, like a proud father of his talented daughter. But could it be more than that? The resemblance between them, the inexplicable connection he felt with the twins, could Clara actually be his biological daughter? "Yes, Alex," he finally answered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I cared for her very much." As the days turned into weeks, John Peter was surprised by how quickly the twins had become an integral part of his life. He found himself eager to return home after long meetings, anxious to hear about their day, to share meals and stories. One night, as he was tucking the boys into bed, Alex held his hand. "Mr. Davis," he said sleepily, "do you think our mum would be happy to see us with you?" John Peter felt a lump form in his throat. "I'm sure she would, Alex. Your mother only wanted the best for you." As he left the room, John Peter was hit by a wave of emotion so intense that he had to lean against the wall. The connection he felt with these boys, the love that grew in his heart each day, was something he had never experienced before. That night, alone in his study, John Peter picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Hello, Mary. It's John Peter. I need to talk to you about something important, about Clara." On the other end of the line, his older sister was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy with emotion. "John Peter, I think it's time you knew the truth." As Mary began to tell a story that went back decades, John Peter felt his world spin. Every word his sister spoke confirmed his deepest suspicions and his greatest fears. Clara wasn't just a talented former employee he had mentored. She was much more. She was the daughter he never knew he had. Tears began to stream freely down John Peter's face as the truth of his connection to Clara and the twins finally came to light. Years of family secrets, decisions made by others on his behalf, had shaped not only his destiny, but Clara's, and now Alex and Ben's. When he hung up the phone, John Peter felt drained, but strangely at peace. He looked at the photo of Clara on his desk, now seeing her with new eyes, the eyes of a father who finally recognized his daughter. "I'm sorry, Clara," he whispered to the photograph. "I should have known. I should have been there for you. But I promise I'll be there for your sons. Our grandsons." That night, as the soft sound of the sleeping twins' breathing echoed down the hallway, John Peter made a silent promise. He would dedicate the rest of his life to honoring Clara's memory and giving Alex and Ben all the love and support he couldn't give his daughter. The future was still uncertain, full of legal and emotional challenges. But for the first time in years, John Peter Davis felt truly alive, with a clear purpose. The echoes of the past had finally found resonance in the present, paving the way for a future he could hardly wait to embrace. The morning was grey as Daniel left his apartment, determined to unravel the mystery surrounding Clara. He had spent a sleepless night, poring over the scant information he had about his former co-worker. Now, armed with a list of names and addresses, he was ready to delve into Clara's past. His first destination was the apartment of Maria, a former colleague of Clara's in the marketing department. Daniel rang the doorbell, feeling a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. After a few seconds, the door opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with curious eyes. "Hello, you must be Maria," Daniel said, extending his hand. "My name is Daniel. I used to work with Clara at the company, and I'm trying to understand what happened to her." Maria's face lit up with recognition. "Clara, my goodness, it's been years since I've heard that name. Please, come in." Daniel followed Maria into the living room, decorated with family photos and travel souvenirs. They sat down, and Maria offered a cup of coffee, which Daniel gratefully accepted. "Clara was brilliant," Maria began, her eyes lost in memories. "She had innovative ideas, always thinking ahead. But not everyone appreciated that." Daniel leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you mean?" Maria sighed. "There were tensions. Clara often clashed with management. She believed the company should take bolder directions, but the board preferred to play it safe." Daniel nodded, remembering the rumors that had circulated at the time. "And what happened after she left?" "It was tough for her," Maria admitted. "Clara tried to start her own consulting business, but many doors were closed to her. It seemed like someone was actively trying to prevent her success." Maria's words left Daniel uneasy. He thanked her for the information and set off for his next destination, Clara's old apartment. The building was modest, located in a quiet neighborhood of the city. Daniel found the superintendent, an elderly man named Joe, who still remembered Clara. "Ah, Miss Clara," Joe said, with a nostalgic smile. "Such a kind young lady, always with a smile on her face, even when things got tough." "Tough how?" Daniel asked, sensing he was getting closer to something important. Joe scratched his head. Well, she started having trouble paying the rent. I'd see her leaving early and coming back late, always looking exhausted. Once I overheard her on the phone, arguing with someone about a job that hadn't worked out. Daniel thanked the superintendent and continued his journey. His next stop was a coffee shop where Clara used to work after leaving the company. There, he found a barista named Lucy, who remembered Clara well. Clara spent hours here, Lucy recounted, as she prepared an espresso for Daniel. Always with her laptop open, working on projects, she told me she was trying to build her own brand, but she was facing a lot of resistance in the market. What kind of resistance? Daniel inquired, taking a sip of his coffee. Lucy lowered her voice. She mentioned that former connections were spreading rumors about her, saying she was difficult to work with, that she caused problems. It was devastating for her. With each new piece of information, Daniel felt he was approaching a dark truth. He thanked Lucy and set off for his last destination of the day, the home of Peter, Clara's best friend at the company. Peter lived in the suburbs, in a simple house with a small front garden. When Daniel explained the reason for his visit, Peter invited him in, his expression a mixture of surprise and concern. Clara and I were very close, Peter began, sitting down in a worn armchair. After she left the company, we stayed in touch for a while, but then she started to withdraw. Why? Daniel asked, feeling he was about to discover something crucial. Peter hesitated, as if weighing his next words. Clara discovered something big. She didn't tell me exactly what it was, but she said it could change everything. She was investigating some kind of irregularity at the company, something that happened before she left. Daniel's heart raced. And what happened then? She became paranoid, Peter said, his voice low. She said she was being followed, that her apartment had been broken into. The last time we spoke, she mentioned a diary where she was recording everything she'd discovered. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes wide. A diary? Do you know where it is? Peter shook his head. I'm not sure, but Clara mentioned something about hiding important things in a place no one would think to look. She used to say that the best hiding places are in plain sight. Thanking Peter for the crucial information, Daniel left with his mind reeling. He spent the rest of the day revisiting the places Clara frequented, searching for any clue to the diary's whereabouts. It was late afternoon. When Daniel was about to give up, that inspiration struck him. He rushed back to Clara's old apartment building, his heart pounding in his chest. Joe, Daniel called, finding the superintendent in the lobby. Did Clara leave anything behind when she moved out? Anything that might seem unimportant? The old superintendent frowned, thoughtful. Well, now that you mention it, there was an old plant. Clara asked me to take care of it. Said she'd come back for it, but she never did. Daniel felt a surge of excitement. Where is this plant now? Joe led him to a small storage room at the back of the building. There, in a dusty corner, was a pot with a wilting plant. Carefully, Daniel began to examine the pot, his fingers probing the dry soil, and then he felt it. Something solid, buried deep in the dirt. With his heart racing, Daniel gently dug until his fingers touched something that felt like leather. Slowly, he pulled the object out. It was a small, brown, leather-bound notebook, its pages slightly curled from moisture. On the cover, in faded gold letters were the words, Clara's Diary. Daniel stared at the diary in his hands, feeling the weight of his discoveries. He knew that within those pages lay the answers he sought, the truths that Clara had struggled to reveal. With a mixture of apprehension and determination, Daniel opened the diary. The first words jumped off the page, written in Clara's elegant handwriting. If you're reading this, it means my suspicions were correct. The truth is darker than I could have imagined. Daniel closed the diary, knowing that whatever was written within would change everything. He thanked Joe and left the building, the precious diary safe in his hands. As he walked through the city streets, now bathed in the twilight glow, Daniel reflected on everything he had discovered. Clara's struggles, the rumors, the paranoia, it all fit into a sinister puzzle that he was only beginning to piece together. Looking at the diary in his hands, Daniel knew he was about to delve into deep and potentially dangerous waters. But he also knew that he owed it to Clara, to her memory and to the truth she had fought so hard to reveal. With a determined sigh, Daniel quickened his pace towards his apartment. He had a long road ahead, but now, finally, he had the tools to unravel the mystery. The real work was just beginning. John Peter Davis sat in his study, Clara's diary resting in his trembling hands. The small brown leather-bound notebook, retrieved from its makeshift hiding place, seemed to weigh a ton. He knew that the pages before him held truths that would change his life forever. With a deep breath, John Peter opened the diary. Clara's elegant handwriting filled the pages, and he found himself transported back in time through her words. March 15th. Today, I discovered something that rocked my world. I found old documents in my adoptive mother's attic. My original birth certificate. The name of my biological father is there, clear as day. John Peter Davis. The man I work for, who has been my mentor, is actually my father. How do I deal with this information? John Peter felt the air escape his lungs. He reread the passage several times, incredulous. Clara, his protégée, the brilliant young woman he had mentored, was his daughter. Long-forgotten memories began to flood his mind. John Peter saw himself back in 1989, young and impetuous, in love with Marianne, his girlfriend at the time. Flashback. John Peter, I'm pregnant, Marianne had said, tears in her eyes. The young John Peter, scared and unprepared, stammered, But we can't have a baby now. My career is just starting, and your parents... Marianne nodded sadly. I know. I've already decided. I'm going to give the baby up for adoption. It's best for everyone. John Peter, in his youthful cowardice and selfishness, hadn't protested. He watched Marianne disappear from his life, taking with her the secret of their unborn child. Back in the present, John Peter felt a wave of shame and regret engulf him. How could he have been so weak? How could he have allowed his own daughter to grow up without him? Continuing to read the diary, John Peter discovered more startling details. April 20th. I confronted John Peter today, indirectly. I asked about his life when he was young, about past relationships. He mentioned Marianne, but seemed uncomfortable. I couldn't bring myself to reveal the truth. How can I tell my boss that I'm his daughter? John Peter remembered that conversation. At the time, he had dismissed Clara's interest as mere curiosity. How blind he had been. The following pages detailed Clara's internal struggle, her desire to get closer to John Peter, conflicting with her fear of rejection and the complications the truth might bring. To May 10th. I found out today that I'm pregnant. Twins. The irony doesn't escape me. Here I am, carrying 2 babies, while struggling with the fact that my own biological father doesn't know of my existence. How can I raise these children with this secret weighing on me? John Peter gasped. Twins. Alex and Ben, his grandsons. The realization hit him like a thunderbolt. He wasn't just the father who never knew his daughter, but also the grandfather of 2 children whom fate had placed in his path. Continuing to read, John Peter discovered that Clara had decided to leave the company not only because of professional conflicts, but also because being close to him, knowing the truth, had become unbearable. June 15th. My last day at the company. John Peter seemed genuinely sad to see me go. I almost told him everything, but how can I turn his life upside down like that? Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. My children and I will start a new life, far away from here. Tears streamed freely down John Peter's face now. He had lost so much time, so many opportunities to know his daughter, to see his grandsons grow up. The last entries in the diary were particularly painful. Clara wrote about her financial difficulties, about the joy of being a mother to Alex and Ben, and about the constant desire to reveal the truth to John Peter. The final entry, dated just a week before Clara's fatal accident, read, December 1st, I've made a decision. After Christmas, I'm going to find John Peter and tell him everything. Alex and Ben deserve to know their grandfather. And despite everything, I believe John Peter deserves to know that he has a daughter and 2 wonderful grandsons. I just hope it's not too late to build the family we should have been from the beginning. John Peter closed the diary, his body shaking with silent sobs. Clara never had the chance to reveal the truth. Fate, in its cruelty, had taken her before she could fulfill her final wish. Looking at Clara's photo on his desk, John Peter finally saw what he should have seen years ago. The familiar features, the smile that was so much like his own, the eyes that he now saw reflected in Alex and Ben. "Forgive me, Clara," he whispered to the photograph. "Forgive me for not being there, for not seeing what was right in front of me." At that moment there was a soft knock on the study door. Alex and Ben entered timidly, their eyes wide with concern at seeing John Peter's tears. "Mr. Davis, are you okay?" Alex asked, his voice small and worried. John Peter looked at the boys, his grandsons, and felt his heart expand with a love he had never experienced before. He opened his arms, and the twins rushed into his embrace. "I'm more than okay," John Peter said, his voice thick with emotion. "I just discovered something wonderful about you and your mother." As he held Alex and Ben close, John Peter knew he had a lot to tell them, a lot to explain. But in that moment, all that mattered was the love he felt for these children. His children. The truth had come to light, bringing with it pain, regret, but also a chance for redemption. John Peter Davis, the lonely millionaire, had become not just a father but a grandfather, and he vowed right then and there that he would spend the rest of his life making up for lost time, honoring Clara's memory, and being the family that Alex and Ben deserved. The journey would be long and undoubtedly full of challenges, but for the first time in years, John Peter looked to the future with hope and purpose. The truth, however painful, had finally set his heart free. John Peter sat in his favorite armchair, his gaze lost in the cityscape beyond the window. The revelation that he was a grandfather to twins, the children of his deceased daughter Amelia, still reverberated in his mind like a never-ending echo. The weight of guilt and shock seemed to crush his chest, making even the simple act of breathing difficult. Sarah watched her husband from afar, worried. She knew John Peter needed time to process everything, but she also recognized that he couldn't completely shut down. With soft steps, she approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. "John," she said gently, "do you want to talk?" He turned slowly, his tearful eyes meeting hers. "How could I not have known, Sarah? How could I have failed Amelia so terribly?" Sarah sat beside him, taking his hand. "We couldn't have known. Amelia chose not to tell us." "But I should have realized," John Peter exclaimed, the anguish evident in his voice. What kind of father doesn't realize his daughter is pregnant? What kind of grandfather doesn't know about his own grandchildren for years? "A father who respected his daughter's space and choices," Sarah replied firmly. "John, you can't blame yourself for something that was beyond your control." John Peter shook his head, unable to accept the comfort offered. "I pushed her away, Sarah. With my rigidity, my obsession with work. So I pushed her away and now—" His voice failed, tears finally streaming down his wrinkled face. Sarah embraced him, allowing him to cry on her shoulder. It was the first time she had seen him cry since Amelia's funeral. "Now we have a chance to do things differently," she whispered. "Guys, we have two wonderful boys to get to know and love." After a few minutes, John Peter calmed down enough to speak again. "How can I look at them without seeing my mistakes? How can I be a grandfather when I failed as a father?" "One day at a time," Sarah replied, stroking his face. "Start by trying to get to know them. They are a part of Amelia, John. They are a part of her that is still here with us." Sarah's words seemed to awaken something in John Peter. He straightened up, wiping away his tears. "You're right. I need to try." In the days that followed, John Peter made several attempts to connect with the twins. His first visit was awkward and tense. The boys, Luke and Matthew, looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Hello, boys," John Peter said, his voice trembling slightly. I'm your grandfather." Luke, the more extroverted of the two, stepped forward. "Did you know our mum?" The innocent question hit John Peter like a punch to the stomach. "Yes," he replied, struggling to maintain his composure. "She was my daughter." Matthew, the quieter one, observed him carefully. "Why didn't you ever visit us before?" John Peter felt the weight of guilt increase. How could he explain years of absence to 8-year-old children? I didn't know about you, he admitted. Your mother and we drifted apart. It was a mistake I deeply regret. The boys exchanged glances, processing the information. John Peter felt helpless, unsure how to proceed. It was Sarah who saved the situation, suggesting they all go out for ice cream together. During the outing, John Peter observed the twins closely. Luke had Amelia's smile, while Matthew had inherited her thoughtful eyes. Every little detail was a painful and precious reminder of his daughter. In the following weeks, John Peter made every effort to build a relationship with his grandsons. He took them to the park, read stories, and even tried playing video games, much to the boys' amusement, who found his lack of skill hilarious. Each interaction was a bittersweet mix of joy and pain for John Peter. Seeing Amelia's traits in the boys was a constant reminder of his loss, but also a source of unexpected comfort. One evening, after putting the twins to bed during a visit, John Peter found Sarah in the living room. She immediately noticed his troubled expression. "And what's wrong, John?" she asked, concerned. He sighed deeply before answering. "They asked me about Amelia today. They wanted to know what she was like as a child." Sarah nodded understandingly. "And how was it?" "It was difficult," John Peter admitted, "but it was also good in a way. Talking about her, sharing memories, it's like she's a little more present." Sarah smiled softly. "That's good, John. The boys need those stories, and you need to share them." John Peter agreed, but his expression was still somber. "Sarah, I can't let them go." "What do you mean?" "The boys. They're all we have left of Amelia, so I can't bear the thought of losing them too." Sarah studied her husband's face for a moment. "Are you thinking of seeking custody of them?" John Peter nodded slowly. "I know it's a huge decision. They have a settled life with their adoptive parents, but they're our family, Sarah. Our last connection to Amelia." Sarah took her husband's hands in hers. "John, are you sure? This won't be easy. There will be a legal battle, and the boys might get confused and scared by the whole process." "I know," John Peter replied, his voice firm for the first time in weeks. "But I feel like I owe this to Amelia, and to them. I want to give them the chance to know their heritage, their history." Sarah took a deep breath, considering the implications. "If that's what you really want, I'll support you. But we need to think carefully about how to approach this. The boys must be our priority." John Peter agreed. "I'll talk to a lawyer tomorrow. We need to understand our options, our rights." In the days that followed, John Peter immersed himself in research and legal consultations. He was determined to do things the right way this time, putting the twins' needs first. One afternoon, while reviewing some documents, he came across an old photo of Amelia. It was a picture of her at 8 years old, the same age as the twins were now. John Peter felt tears welling up in his eyes, but this time they weren't just tears of sadness. "I'll take care of them, ma chérie," he whispered to the photograph. "I promise I'll do everything I can to give them the love and support you would have given. I won't fail them like I failed you." Sarah found him like that, contemplating the photo with an expression of serene determination. She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. Are we doing the right thing?" John Peter asked softly. Sarah thought for a moment before answering. "I don't know if there's a simple answer to that, John, but I know we're acting out of love. Love for Amelia, love for the boys, and in the end, that's what matters." John Peter nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude for his wife's understanding and support. "It won't be easy," he said. "No," Sarah agreed. "But we'll be in this together. And we'll do what's best for the boys, no matter the outcome." As the sun set outside, John Peter and Sarah sat in comfortable silence, contemplating the uncertain future that awaited them. The weight of the discovery was still there, but now it was accompanied by a sense of purpose and hope. Whatever challenge came their way, they would face it together, for Amelia and for the twins who had brought an unexpected light into their lives. John Peter watched the light rain falling outside his lawyer's office, Mr. Renato Silveira. The drops slid down the window, forming small streams that merged and separated, ironically reminding him of the winding journey he was about to embark on. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves as he turned to the man sitting behind the mahogany desk. "So, Mr. Silvera, what are our chances?" John Peter asked, his voice betraying a slight tremor. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and leafed through the documents in front of him. "John Peter, I'm not going to lie to you. The process of obtaining custody of the twins will be challenging. Since you have no biological ties to them and are not married to the deceased mother, we are facing a complex scenario." John Peter felt a lump form in his throat. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but hearing it from the lawyer made it all the more real. "But I'm the only family they know. Doesn't that count for anything?" "It does count," Mr. Silvera nodded, "but the adoption system in the US prioritizes biological ties and in the absence of these, couples who have been on the adoption waiting list for years. Your situation is unusual." The lawyer's words echoed in John Peter's mind as he left the office, plunging into the grey city. He thought of the twins, Lisa and Lucas, who were temporarily in the care of social workers. The thought of not being able to bring them home consumed him. In the weeks that followed, John Peter immersed himself in an exhausting legal battle. Each day brought new challenges, endless forms, and stressful interviews. The system seemed determined to put obstacles in his path every step of the way. One particularly difficult afternoon, after yet another frustrating meeting with social workers, John Peter found himself sitting on a park bench, watching children play with their parents. The carefree laughter and innocent joy made him question whether he really was the best option for the twins. It was in this moment of doubt that his phone rang. It was Mr. Silvera. "John Peter, we have a situation." The lawyer's voice sounded tense. "A couple has filed an adoption petition for the twins, the Martins. They've been on the adoption waiting list for 5 years and have a very strong profile." John Peter's world seemed to crumble. "But what about our process?" "It's still ongoing, but this complicates things," Mr. Silvera explained. "The Martins have a stable home, both have secure jobs, and have already gone through all the necessary evaluations for adoption." In the days that followed, John Peter couldn't think of anything else. He obsessively researched the Martins, discovering that they were a respectable couple. Carlos, a civil engineer, and Maria, a university professor. They had a spacious house in the suburbs, with a large backyard, the kind of place any child would dream of growing up in. John Peter's internal conflict intensified. On the one hand, he loved Lisa and Lucas as if they were his own children. He had been there since their birth, knew their personalities, their fears, their dreams. The thought of losing them was unbearable. On the other hand, the Martins seemed to offer everything he couldn't: financial stability, a traditional family, a permanent home. One night, unable to sleep, John Peter went for a walk. The streets were almost deserted, the silence broken only by the occasional bark of a distant dog. He found himself in front of the park where he used to take the twins. Memories flooded him. Lucas taking his first hesitant steps on the grass, Lisa laughing uncontrollably as he pushed her on the swing. "What should I do?" he murmured to himself, feeling the weight of the decision he faced. The next morning, determined to fight, John Peter scheduled a meeting with his lawyer. "Mr. Silvera, I need to know. What can we do to strengthen our case?" The lawyer sighed, removing his glasses to rub his tired eyes. "John Peter, I know how much this means to you. We can argue about the emotional bond you have with the children, present witnesses who can attest to your care and dedication, but I must warn you, it will be an uphill battle." Weeks turned into months. John Peter divided his time between working tirelessly to prove he could financially support the children, preparing for court hearings, and, in the rare moments allowed, visiting Lisa and Lucas. During one of these supervised visits, John Peter noticed how the children seemed quieter, less lively. "What's wrong, Miss Petit?" he asked gently, using the affectionate French nickname that always made them smile. Lisa, always the more talkative of the two, looked at him with big, sad eyes. "Uncle John, when are we going home?" The innocent question hit John Peter like a punch to the stomach. I'm trying, sweetheart. I'm doing everything I can." It was at that moment that John Peter realized his battle wasn't just against the system or against the Martins. It was a battle against himself, against his own desires, and what would truly be best for Lisa and Lucas. On a rainy afternoon similar to the one where it all began, John Peter found himself back in Mr. Silvera's office. But this time he wasn't there for legal strategies. "I want to meet the Martins," he declared, his voice firm despite the emotional storm within him. Mr. Silvera seemed surprised. "Are you sure? That's unusual at this stage of the process." John Peter nodded. "I need to see for myself. I need to know what kind of people they are." The meeting was arranged on neutral ground, a quiet cafe in the city center. John Peter arrived first, his heart pounding furiously as he waited. When Carlos and Maria Martins walked in, he was surprised by their ordinary and kind appearance. The conversation started tensely, but soon flowed more easily. John Peter heard about the Martins' years of waiting, their hopes and dreams of starting a family. He saw the love in their eyes when they spoke about the children, even without having met them yet. "Why Lisa and Lucas?" John Peter finally asked, his voice almost a whisper. Maria smiled softly. "When we read about them, about their story, we felt a connection. We know we can't replace what they've lost, but we want to give them a home filled with love and stability." The words echoed in John Peter's mind, mingling with his own doubts and fears. He thought about his hectic life, the long working hours, the financial uncertainty. He thought about the spacious backyard of the Martins' house, the opportunities they could offer. In the days that followed, John Peter faced the most difficult decision of his life. He spent hours staring at photos of the twins, remembering every precious moment they shared. But whenever he closed his eyes, he saw the future, a future that, he began to realize, could be brighter with the Martins. Finally, with a heavy but resolute heart, John Peter scheduled a meeting with his lawyer and the social workers in charge of the case. I want to withdraw my custody request," he announced, his voice choked with emotion. "I believe the Martins can offer Lisa and Lucas the home and stability they deserve." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of John Peter's decision hanging in the air. Mr. Silvera was the first to speak. "John Peter, are you sure? After everything you've been through?" John Peter nodded, unshed tears glistening in his eyes. "I am. This isn't a battle about what I want. It's about what's best for the children, and I believe this is the right decision." In the months that followed, John Peter worked closely with the social workers and the Martins to ensure a smooth transition for Lisa and Lucas. He was present when the children met their future adoptive parents, his heart breaking and warming simultaneously as he witnessed the immediate connection that formed. On the day the twins finally went to their new home, John Peter hugged them tightly, whispering promises to always be present in their lives, even if in a different way. As he watched the Martins' car drive away, Lisa and Lucas waving excitedly from the back window, John Peter felt a mixture of pain and peace. He had fought his battle, not with lawyers or courts, but with his own heart. And although the outcome wasn't what he initially desired, he knew deep down that he had done the right thing. The rain began to fall softly, reminding John Peter of that day in the lawyer's office that seemed to have happened a lifetime ago. But this time, the drops didn't look like confused streams on the window. Instead, they cleared the air, bringing with them the promise of a new beginning, not just for Lisa and Lucas, but for him too. Mr. Silvera's office seemed smaller than ever, with John Peter, the Martins, and the social worker, Dr. Oliveira, crowded around the mahogany table. The tension in the air was palpable, like a stretched string about to snap. "Mr. and Mrs. Martins, Mr. Davis," Mr. Silvera began, adjusting his glasses. "We are here today to discuss the future of Alex and Ben. I believe we all agree that the children's well-being is our top priority." John Peter nodded stiffly, his eyes briefly meeting those of Carlos and Maria Martins. He could see the mixture of hope and apprehension on their faces, a reflection of his own conflicting feelings. "John Peter, Dr. Oliveira interjected softly, "you have been a constant presence in the twins' lives since they were found. How do you see your role in their future?" The question caught John Peter off guard. He took a deep breath, searching for the right words. I love Alex and Ben as if they were my own grandsons. I can't imagine my life without them. But I also know they need stability, a family. Maria Martins leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. We understand your bond with the boys, Mr. Davis. We don't want to deprive them of your presence. Perhaps we can find a middle ground. The negotiations that followed were intense and emotional. They discussed regular visits, shared holidays, even the possibility of John Peter becoming the twins' official godfather. Each point was debated, weighed, and carefully considered. While the adults discussed, in another room, Alex and Ben waited anxiously, their small faces tense with worry. What do you think will happen to us? Whispered Ben, clutching his brother's hand. Alex shrugged, trying to appear brave. I don't know, but at least we have each other, right? When they were finally called to join the discussion, the twins entered hand in hand, their eyes wide at the serious faces of the adults. Alex, Ben, Doctor. Oliveira began with a kind smile. We want to know how you feel about all of this. The boys exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. It was Alex who spoke first, his voice small but determined. We like Mr. Davis. He saved us. But we also want a family, Ben finished, looking shyly at the Martins. Can we have both? The innocent question hit John Peter like a punch to the gut. He saw the longing in the twins' eyes, the yearning for stability and unconditional love. In that moment, something inside him broke and rebuilt simultaneously. Yes, he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. Yes, you can have both. Guys, I will always be here for you, no matter what happens. The Martins smiled, tears in their eyes, and John Peter knew he had made the right decision, however painful it was. As the final details were being worked out, John Peter felt his phone vibrate. It was a text from his sister, Mary. I need to see you urgently. It's about Mom and Clara. John Peter's already unstable world seemed to spin even more. He excused himself hurriedly and stepped out into the hallway, dialing Mary's number with trembling fingers. What is it? He asked as soon as she answered. Mary's voice was heavy with emotion. John, I found some old letters from Mom. She knew about Clara. In fact, it was she who arranged the adoption. The shock was so great that John Peter had to lean against the wall. What? How? Why? She thought it was best for you and the child, Mary explained, her voice trembling. You were so young, so focused on your career. She thought she was protecting your future. Mary's words echoed in John Peter's mind, mingling with memories of his mother, her loving smile, her gentle advice, and now this devastating secret. When he returned to the meeting room, John Peter looked as if he had aged years. The others immediately noticed his change in demeanor. Is everything all right, Mr. Davis? Carlos Martins asked, genuinely concerned. John Peter looked at the faces around him, the Martins, full of hope, Mr. Silveira and Dr. Oliveira, professionally concerned, and the twins, their eyes wide and trusting. He realized he wasn't just deciding Alex and Ben's future, but also confronting his own past and the choices that had shaped his life. I just discovered something about my own family, he began, his voice trembling. Something that changes everything I thought I knew about my life. In the following minutes, John Peter shared the shocking revelation about Clara's adoption, arranged by his own mother. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation hanging over everyone. Mr. Davis, Ben said softly, approaching him. Are you sad because you lost your daughter like we lost our mum? The innocent question broke something inside John Peter. Tears began to stream down his face as he nodded. Yes, Ben. I'm very sad that I missed the chance to know my daughter. Alex joined his brother, both hugging John Peter. Don't be sad, Alex said. Now you have us, and we have you. The children's simple and pure gesture touched everyone in the room. Maria Martins wiped away a tear, exchanging a meaningful look with her husband. Mr. Davis, she said, her voice gentle, perhaps we can think of an even more flexible arrangement, something that allows you to be an even bigger part of the boys' lives. The next few hours were spent renegotiating, redrawing the future not only of Alex and Ben, but of everyone involved. The revelation about Clara had added a new layer of complexity to the situation, but it had also opened doors to a deeper understanding and mutual compassion. By the end of the day, as everyone left the office, there was a sense of exhaustion but also of hope. John Peter looked at Alex and Ben, who were now chatting animatedly with the Martins, and felt a bittersweet mix of joy and sadness. He knew the road ahead would be complicated. There was much to process, much to heal. His mother's betrayal, however well-intentioned, would leave scars. But looking at the twins, at the future they represented, John Peter found strength. One day at a time, he murmured to himself, echoing the words Sarah often told him. As he walked home that night, John Peter felt the weight of decades of secrets and regrets on his shoulders. But he also felt something else, the promise of redemption, the chance to right the wrongs of the past through the love and care he could offer Alex and Ben. The battle for family wasn't over. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning. But for the first time in a long time, John Peter felt he was on the right path, ready to face any challenge that awaited him. The family court was packed that Wednesday morning. The air conditioner hummed softly, trying in vain to dispel the palpable tension that filled the room. John Peter Davis sat stiffly in his seat, adjusting his tie for the umpteenth time. Across the aisle, the Martins exchanged nervous glances, their hands intertwined for mutual comfort. Judge Helena Mendez entered the room, her face a mask of professional neutrality. "We are here today," she began, her firm voice echoing through the room, "to decide the future of Alex and Ben Davis. This is a complex case, with unique circumstances that require our most careful consideration." John Peter felt his heart race. This was the moment that would define not only the twins' future, but his own as well. He glanced towards the back of the room, where Alex and Ben were sitting with a social worker, their small faces a mixture of confusion and apprehension. The hearing proceeded with the lawyer's opening statements. The Martins' representative spoke eloquently about the stability the couple could offer, their experience as adoptive parents, and the love they already felt for the twins. John Peter's lawyer, in turn, emphasized the biological and emotional bond between him and the children, stressing the importance of family connection. Finally, it was John Peter's turn to speak. He rose slowly, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room. Taking a deep breath, he began, "Your Honor, a few weeks ago, I was determined to fight with all my might for custody of Alex and Ben. They are, after all, my biological grandsons, the last connection I have with my daughter, Clara, whom I lost without ever having known." His voice trembled slightly, but he continued, "But recently, I discovered a painful truth about my own family. My mother, believing she was acting in my best interest, arranged for Clara's adoption when she was born, depriving me of the chance to be a father. This revelation made me question everything I thought I knew about family and love." John Peter paused, looking directly at the twins before continuing, "I realized that family is not just about blood ties. It's about love, commitment, and above all, about doing what's best for those we love, even when it's painful for ourselves." Tears began to well up in his eyes, but his voice remained firm. Alex and Ben deserve stability, unconditional love, and the chance to grow up in a home where they are the #1 priority. And as much as it pains me to admit, I know that the Martins can offer that in a way that I, with my complicated life and turbulent past, perhaps cannot. The room was completely silent, everyone absorbed in John Peter's emotional words. "However," he continued, "I ask the court to consider a solution that allows me to remain an active part of my grandsons' lives. Not as a primary guardian, but as a present and loving grandfather, who can offer them a connection to their family history and the love of Clara, even though she is no longer with us." When John Peter finished and returned to his seat, there was a moment of reverent silence in the room. Even Judge Mendez seemed moved, although she quickly recomposed her professional expression. The Martins were the next to speak. Maria, with tears in her eyes, addressed the court. "We came here today prepared to fight for the chance to be Alex and Ben's parents. But after hearing Mr. Davis, we realized that what these boys really need is all of us." Carlos continued, "We don't want to deprive the twins of their family connection. We propose shared custody, where we can raise Alex and Ben together as an extended family united by love for these children. The proposal took everyone by surprise. Judge Mendez raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued by this unconventional solution. "This is unusual," she commented, "but given the unique nature of this case, I am willing to consider it. Mr. Davis, what is your opinion on this proposal?" John Peter, still emotional from his own speech and the Martins' unexpected generosity, stood up again. "Your Honor, I would be honored to be part of this extended family. If it's for Alex and Ben's benefit, I am willing to work with the Martins to create the best possible environment for them." Judge Mendez nodded thoughtfully. "Before making a decision, I would like to hear from the children themselves." She gestured for Alex and Ben to approach. The twins walked timidly to the front of the room, hand in hand. The judge leaned down, speaking gently to them. "Alex, Ben, do you understand what has been discussed here today?" Alex, always the more talkative one, replied, "Yes, ma'am. They're deciding who we're going to live with." "And how do you feel about that?" the judge asked. Ben, usually quiet, surprised everyone by speaking up. "Can we stay with all of them? Grandpa John Peter tells stories about our mum, and the Martins are nice and make us feel safe." The simplicity and wisdom of Ben's answer touched everyone in the room. Judge Mendez smiled kindly, thanking the boys before calling a recess to deliberate. The next few minutes seemed to drag on eternally. John Peter and the Martins exchanged nervous glances, united in their anxiety and hope for the twins' future. Finally, the judge returned, her face serious but with a glimmer of approval in her eyes. "After careful consideration," she began, "I have decided to approve the shared custody arrangement proposed by the Martins and accepted by Mr. Davis. This is a unique situation that requires a unique solution." The room erupted in sighs of relief and a few subdued applause. John Peter felt tears of joy streaming down his face as the Martins embraced. Alex and Ben ran to the center of the room, being enveloped in a group hug by their new guardians. As he watched the scene, John Peter felt a mix of emotions: joy at the solution found, sadness for the daughter he never knew, and hope for the future that lay before them. This wasn't the ending he had imagined when he began this journey, but looking at the smiling faces of his grandsons, John Peter knew it was the right ending. The judgment of the heart had reached a conclusion, and now a new chapter was about to begin. Chapter 11. Tears of Redemption. The aroma of roast turkey and cinnamon filled the Martins' house that Christmas Eve. John Peter, standing at the kitchen door, watched with a smile on his lips as Alex and Ben helped Maria decorate cookies. Carlos, precariously balancing on a ladder, tried to hang the last ornaments on the Christmas tree. "Grandpa, come see," Noah called, holding up a cookie covered in colorful icing. John Peter approached, his heart warming at hearing the term Grandpa. 6 months had passed since the court's decision, and each day brought new wonders and challenges in this unconventional family they had formed. "It's beautiful, Ben," praised John Peter, affectionately ruffling his grandson's hair. Later, while the children slept, the adults gathered in the living room. John Peter looked at the Martins, gratitude overflowing in his heart. "I never imagined I could be part of something like this," he confessed, his voice choked with emotion. "You have given me a gift I can never fully repay." Maria smiled gently. "John Peter, you gave us Alex and Ben. We are all blessed to have each other." Carlos nodded, adding, "This family may not be conventional, but it is full of love, and in the end, that's what matters." The words touched John Peter deeply. He thought of Clara, of his mother, of the past choices that had shaped the present. The path to forgiveness had not been easy, but every smile from the twins, every moment shared with the Martins, helped to heal old wounds. On Christmas morning, the sound of children's laughter woke John Peter. He went downstairs to find Alex and Ben already attacking the presents under the tree, with Carlos and Maria watching, smiling. "Merry Christmas, Grandpa," shouted the twins in unison, running to hug him. As John Peter wrapped them in his arms, he felt a wave of emotion wash over him. Tears began to stream down his face, but this time they were tears of pure joy. "Grandpa, why are you crying?" Alex asked. worried. John Peter smiled through his tears. "Oh, sometimes, my dear, we cry when we are very, very happy." At that moment, looking at the beloved faces around him, John Peter was struck by the magnitude of the transformation in his life. Exactly a year ago, he was a lonely and bitter man, wandering aimlessly through the streets of New York on Christmas Eve. Now he was surrounded by a family that loved him, by two children who called him Grandpa, by a future full of possibilities. "You know," John Peter began, his voice trembling with emotion, "a year ago, I found two little angels in a cold alley. I didn't know it at the time, but that encounter would change my life forever." He paused, looking fondly at Alex and Ben. "You two have given me the greatest gift I could ever receive, a second chance to be part of a family, to love and be loved." John Peter then looked at the Martins, his gratitude evident in every word. "And you two have taught me the true meaning of generosity and unconditional love. Together, we have all created a Christmas miracle that will last a lifetime." As the family gathered in a group hug, John Peter closed his eyes, letting the tears of redemption flow freely. The man who once believed that Christmas was just another lonely day now understood the true spirit of the holiday: love, forgiveness, and the transformative power of an act of kindness. In that perfect moment, surrounded by the warmth of his unlikely but deeply loved family, John Peter knew he had finally found his home.